Yo, 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 we just got back from Virginia Beach last week, and we're gonna do a little recap about what the beep just happened because that was freaking crazy.
So from a technical standpoint, basically, we missed our flight, like simply put, and I'll get into the reasoning at a different time. But the point is, it's really about the focus of this is points and miles are always really about, hey, luxury travel, business class, 5-star luxury hotels, like all those type of things. And this is like a use case of points and miles that I think is really valuable to highlight, and a gentle / like harsh reminder that like when you need something, like especially flexibility and other things, never forget the value of all these type of alternative currencies, if you want to talk about it like that, where it's not about the flashiness or whatnot. It's about just like how money's a tool. It's like how we use basically points and miles to last minute book our flights to still have the same planned kind of vacation, see the loved ones that we went to go, on our trip for, and just have that same experience. But basically, if you missed your flight, then you would have, literally missed out on the experience. So this allowed us to have the same thing that we planned for, as if like there was no change whatsoever. And there was someone who was basically crying, who was injured, who needed to get on the same flight, and they missed it too. If you want to describe them and kind of that experience, go for it.
Okay, so we were just coming out of the Amex Lounge. It was my first time getting in.
What do you think? First time in the American Express Touring Lounge in Atlanta.
I love it. It's amazing. It's beautiful here. I love all of the nature. So grateful that he brought me into the Amex Lounge because that place is so cool. I got to see the 50-year-old olive tree, all that kind of stuff. And so while we're enjoying ourselves and getting some last minute B-roll shots, A-roll shots, whatever you like to call them, our flight gate was literally maybe like a minute walk away. And we were flying with Frontier. So naturally you would think, oh yeah, I just need to get, the gates would close 15 minutes before the flight time, all that kind of stuff. But no, this was 30 minutes. And literally right when we got to the gate, like you can literally see the plane pushing back. And so there's another girl and that was there who missed her flight. And she was like going bonkers because she's, calling out other people. Like she was calling a guy who's like, does more janitorial type of work, and she's like, excuse me, hey you, yeah you, and he's like, me? She's like, yeah, come over here, like very demanding, very pushy. And she was just saying like, can you please open this gate, I can't miss this flight. And she was just low-key like rating on other people, and once the gate is closed and once the airplane is gone, you can't do anything. And she's like, I don't know, y'all better do something because I'm tweaking right now. And I was like, all right. I mean, thank God, we both kept our cool. I think if we were a little younger, maybe in our early like 20s or 19 years old, maybe we would have cried, but we didn't. We're just like, okay, like, stressing about the situation does not solve anything. I was low key like, if this trip doesn't happen, it's fine, but obviously it will suck. But we're both at a point where just like, we just need like a time to get out of town. So this legend over here, he pretty much was like, okay, let's check what other airports that we can fly to. There was DCA, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so it is like DCA. Basically, what it is we were going from Atlanta to Virginia Beach. We want to go to Richmond, and basically we were going to go to Virginia Beach specifically, which is ORF, the airport code. And so if we went to DCA, which is like Washington, D.C., then it would be like a 3-hour drive to get to, the initial intended destination. The big caveat or like point we want to call out here is basically it was a nonstop flight from Atlanta to ORF airport. I think it's at Norfolk is how they say it. Yeah. So Norfolk. So the point is nonstop, dude, like last minute, like Frontier, they were like $50 seats. So that was a big selling point.
Yeah.
And if you wanted like Delta or any of the proper kind of like flights, like you're talking like $200-300 one way, which is like, I mean, maybe it's normal for one of y'all watching, but no, it's like no bueno for me, at least, you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like a domestic, it's like a 1-hour flight or something like that. It was something ridiculous, like in the good way.
Yeah.
So point being that this individual who was like crying and then missed their flight, dude, they like opened the emergency gate to go onto their jet bridge. And we're hearing the like, like beep, 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 like all the alarms going off and all this crazy stuff. But the reason I mentioned is like I've never seen anyone like kind of tweak out like, she was saying and like doing these things.
Yeah.
So all that to say, we basically, I pulled out kind of, hey, what is the next flight? And so at this point, we passed security, we've had good meal at the Amex Lounge, as you were saying, and all the good things. And instead of freaking out, I was like, okay, well, never in my life have I booked a last minute flight, whether cash or, with miles and points, especially for this type of reason. Yeah, if someone really passes away or other things, this is actually a good example of exactly, how you can have a use case for miles and points through credit cards and all these type of, programs that we talk about. So there was a direct flight within like the next hour. Okay. And this is important because kind of the more technical part that I'll get into, but it was with Delta. It was Atlanta to Virginia Beach, and it was direct, but in cash per person, like, dude, we're talking like $500 cash one way, a little above $500. And that's like $1,000 cash if you're trying to do this. And honestly, we know with $1,000 you can go international one way at least, or even a round trip. From here, it was basically seeing, okay, I had X amount of miles, not necessarily my Delta account, but that's where like Amex as a transfer partner, Amex, you can transfer your points to Delta. And I'm not saying it's the best redemption, but the value, it was almost, we can say, priceless. Or again, if you're going to pay $1,000 cash, like, you tell me, I don't know if I really would have been okay doing it. I don't know what you think.
No, probably not $1,000. I mean, we love our friends. We love them so much, but like, it's like, it's okay. We'll just see you next week or something like that. But because we had events already, whatever. And so, one thing that's very important to know is that, in the movies, or not even the movies, my friends would tell me, like, you could just go up to the gate and buy a flight ticket, and it's a lot cheaper than, from buying online. So I'm like, okay, maybe we should just like go to the gate, buy the flight ticket, maybe might get at a cheaper price. But since it was within an hour, he was like, he was like, okay, let's go onto the Delta app, just buy a ticket first, and then we'll figure it out from there. And thank God he did, because when we did get to the gate, they were like, oh, we asked like, hey, how much is a flight ticket if we were to buy it right now? The gate attendant was like, oh, you know what? You won't be able to buy it now because it's closed. So we never really got our final answer. But that's just like an important thing to know. If you do miss your flight, just go on your phone immediately and buy the flight ticket versus waiting. Yeah.
And I think the big call out was like, it was basically an hour from when we were referring to these flights. And what I didn't know, and it totally makes sense, I get it, right? Like if, basically, I don't know if you have malintention, or, in this case, I had to checkbox a disclaimer. Pretty much like I needed to show ID and proof of payment when we got to the check-in gate, because, maybe it could be fraud, it could be, anything, any kind of illicit reason, you know what I mean, of a flight risk type of situation. So I was a bit like shocked seeing that in the checkout flow. But in the heat of the moment, it's like, when you're younger, maybe you kind of externally are more emotions. But here it was like laser focus. Let's book the thing. Right. Let's make it happen. But still very focused. So I wish I took screenshots, or I was like, oh man, I should have screen recorded the flow of like how we did this. But but the reality was very straightforward. We got there. It was definitely last minute. We showed our IDs, like all the good things. And luckily, because Frontier and Spirit, I'll watch my language, but these guys, man, they charge like crazy for all their ancillary fees, like baggage and all this nonsense. So what we did is we did not actually check in a bag, because if we did, the funny part is like the bag would have been gone on the plane technically. And yeah, sure, we're going to the same airport, but that doesn't mean, you know what I mean? It's not like not easy, and we wouldn't have any of our stuff. So in all that scenario, then with Delta, we had the same bag. We're easy to go in, no extra fees. Of course, we paid a pretty penny for the one-way trip there, but again, miles and points really afforded that experience, and it took away, hey, cash wasn't, gone. It can still be invested into whatever use of cash you want or have, et cetera, et cetera. So this is priceless, man. This is a crazy, like, I'm so blessed, that, we got to learn about how to do these things, in life, because, that weekend was a very vital one. And if you need an emergency reasoning, then imagine blowing multiple thousands of dollars and a lot of stress and angst. And especially when it's last minute, man, you got to take like a 1-stop, 2-stop kind of thing. It's not a joke if you're trying to go somewhere internationally last minute or something like this. So I would say that points and miles, never forget. Planned experiences are great. Sure, there's limited award availability sometimes on that amazing one-way business class flight to Japan and all these great things. But when you really need something and you have no other way, points and miles are really like cash equivalents, if you want to put it like that, or they can afford you mobility, flexibility. Like, all of those type of things, man. So I would just say go for it, because
When it comes to having points in your point account, I don't know what to call it, in your points reserves, and let's say you have like 45,000, which is what I believe we paid for the flight in terms of points.
yeah, I think it was, to my memory, it's like, I think 47,200, 46,002, something ridiculous in Delta Sky Miles, where the average of like 1.3 cents per point. So we got like a $500 something flight. And I think the value in the end was 1.1 for anyone who wants a technical answer like that.
But what I'm saying is that, we can't think in that type of like, scarcity mindset where it's like, man, I don't know if I should use my points or not, because if you always compare this moment to some other moment that you want to happen, which will eventually happen for you, if you want to take some international trip or not, it's like what comes will goes. And there's a reason why you have these points in the first place, because you're meaning to use it on something. And it's all about, the significance of the trip versus like the amount you have at the end of the day, at the end of your life. Because if you have like 1 billion points and you never used it and you're in your grave, why does that even matter? It's the stories, that be happening.
No, literally, because that's what they say. It's like the richest place in the world is like the graveyard, because there's a lot of people who just die with so much wealth and all these things, and that's one way to look at it. Obviously, enjoy your time, and the same old stuff, right? Like, don't overspend, don't be like ridiculous within reason, but depends what type of life you want, life setup. And I would say, that value, really just, getting into the math, because I have to,
Right.
It's almost like 50K Amex points that I transferred over to Delta's program. And back in the day, it was 25,000 miles one way from Atlanta to Incheon Airport, like Korea. So technically both of us one way could have gone, or one person round trip, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in simple, the value, it's definitely there, right? But this is not one of those situations where, would I have saved it? Would we have done that redemption later and been like, yeah, we didn't go there for that weekend, so instead we did this? Like, it's not, you can't really compare. It's not an apples and apples comparison.
Right. But yeah, that was just like the little surprise and scare that we had from our trip. And hopefully this helps you guys out too. But yeah, one of the most important things that I would say that I've taken away from our experience is to always double check, when does your gate close before the flight time. It's going to differ from all airlines. Frontier and Spirit, I think it's going to be like, get there 30 minutes before, ahead of time. Delta and American Airlines maybe like 15 to 20 minutes. So this was one of those moments where, Mama was right. Get to the airport 2 hours early, get to the gate 1 hour early. Because, and I know that and I know that you probably might be the person who, it's like, yeah, let me just get there 30 minutes before the gates close. Yeah, no, never again.
Yeah, I mean, I was traveling on the road as a management consultant. I've said in other videos, and so much travel experience. But it's one of those like, haha, gotcha moment where like, you think you have so much experience, right? And it's like, oh, you thought you're so, on top of the mountain. Well, boom, kick you back to the ground. Where it was, I don't know about you, but it was like my first, if not maybe second frontier flight in my life. Where had I taken one, maybe it's like 10 plus years ago. I don't even know.
Yeah.
So that's another little like, I'm not saying that's a reason. Obviously, again, be early. Before the boarding actually begins, and all like the correct procedures. But we take it for granted when so many flights, all these other airlines, there's like a common operating procedure. But Frontier, man, like really was like a punch in the gut for me.
And what's even funnier is that he was actually going on a flight out to Dallas within a couple of days on Frontier too. So, I mean, he made it on time. Everything was all good and stuff. So, yeah, to each their own.
True that. So with that, if you came this far, thanks for coming to the end. Hopefully you got some value out of this. And, money is money, but money also is a tool. Never forget. And points and miles are just like money. So, yeah.
And comment down below if there's any sort of traveling experience that has happened to you, and some life-changing moment. Feel free to comment down below and share what you learned. It'd help us all out.
True that.
All right. See y'all in the next video.
Peace for now, guys.